So today we are going to answer the age-old question: are guns viable in fantasy settings? And right at the start we have to make an important distinction between low fantasy and high fantasy. In Overlord's new world, where spells are able to direct devastating lightning strikes, and I'm talking about literal bolts of lightning, where dimensional cutting waves, firestorms, and sharknadoes, and I'm talking about literal sharknado attack spells, are a thing. Normal guns, and I'm talking about small arms in general, would be pretty underpowered. Invisibility spells, fireballs, or summoned creatures such as wolves, angels, or the undead are all viable in overwhelming your squad, especially because sooner or later you will run out of ammo. So in high fantasy settings where magic weapons are granting their wielder inhuman strength, perception, power, and accuracy, bows are a far better alternative to guns, especially if common arrows can be used as ammunition. In high fantasy, a sufficiently enchanted bow is basically a gun, with ammunition growing on trees. And the only way to make use of your gun effectively would be to buff it, so that it may compete with swords, bows, crossbows, and magic. And in Overlord, the battle-made automaton Shizu Delta gets around this problem by wielding a mana-powered spell gun. So instead of casting a small series of fireball, Shizu simply fires a gun or a similar effect. However, in fairly low fantasy settings like Game of Thrones, which is much more down to earth, if you disregard a lot of the later episodes, guns would be devastating. Even with limited ammunition at hand, you could just claim to be a sorcerer. And after someone ignorant gets a headshot instead of an arrow to the knee, people might start to respect your way of magic quite a bit. Even if they had been initially a bit more skeptical about your assault weapon sorcery. Basically, in low fantasy settings, most of the time you're just in a regular medieval setting, but with a gun. You just need to remember to take fairy tales and myths a bit more seriously than before. So if somebody sends out a raven to warn the world about the dangerous Lich King and Sindragosa, you probably should switch continents. If you adhere to these advices, you're kinda safe, and the only problem you will run into, or better yet, out of, is ammunition. So instead of wielding a gun, you're kinda forced to wield the threat of using your gun. After all, you don't need to use any of your ammunition if everyone agrees that guns are deadly and that they should not be used on them. Also, the power and status you will acquire with your weapon could be used to get all materials required for crafting more ammunition. But the more people get involved, the likelier it is that your guns are seen as tools rather than magic from the far, far away country of Yusei. So yeah, be careful. So that was a short take on weapons in medieval fantasy settings, especially in Overlord and Game of Thrones. I hope you liked this video. Have a nice day, over and out.